Perhaps these big cities just can't function at their size. Like, there's got to be a certain point at which you can't get trucks and food and enough shelter and power and resources into a condensed city, right? Take a look at this story. NYC secretly exports homeless to Hawaii and other states without telling receiving polls. So they're taking homeless people. Instead of helping them get jobs or deal with mental health issues, they just put them on a bus and send them away. And there was an old scandal similar to this. Family Guy made a joke about it. But it made me think, we will read through this story, but I started thinking, take a second. LA, massive urban sprawl, right? New York, massive urban sprawl. There's got to be an upper limit to how many people could live in a certain, dense state. There's another story I was reading about how they can't get cars into Manhattan, like it's congested, because everybody's ordering everything online. So the amount of delivery trucks and Amazon and stuff is skyrocketing because people don't want to walk to the store anymore. And not only that, getting stuff in New York is kind of difficult because everything's a specialty shop as it is. But you can always count on those with the compassion in the leadership of these urban liberal districts to help the homeless by, hey, free ticket to Hawaii, right? So let's read the story and then we'll talk about the city stuff. The New York Post reports, New York City generously shares its homeless crisis with every corner of America. From the tropical shores of Honolulu and Puerto Rico to the Badlands of Utah and backwaters of Louisiana, the Big Apple has sent local homeless families to 373 cities across the country with a full year of rent in their pockets as part of Mayor Bill de Blasio's special one-time assistance program. Wow. Bill de Blasio, very progressive of you. Usually the receiving city knows nothing about it. City taxpayers have spent $89 million on rent alone since the program's August 2017 inception to export 5,074 homeless families, 12,482 individuals to places as close as Newark and as far as the South Pacific, according to Department of Homeless Services data obtained by the Post. Families who once lived in city shelters decamped to 32 states and Puerto Rico. Why don't they just relocate them within the state? I wonder. The city also paid travel expenses through a separate taxpayer-funded program called Project Reconnect, but would not divulge how much it spent. A Friday flight to Honolulu for 4 people would cost about $1,400. A bus ticket to Salt Lake City, Utah for the same family would cost $800. Add to the tab the cost of furnishings, which the city also did not disclose. One soda recipient said she received $1,000. This is incredible. Could you imagine living in New York City and having a decent amount of your public funds being used to send homeless people to other states? Wow. It sounds so crazy, right? Because when you think about it, they're giving them a place to live. They're buying them furniture. But doesn't it kind of feel like you're stealing from the people who live in the city to export a city problem instead of fixing it? Like, think about it. What if you took that money and said, hey, we're going to deal with the homeless crisis? Instead, you know what they're doing? They're incentivizing homeless people to go to New York to apply for the program to get a free year of rent somewhere else. Man, I know a lot of people who would take them up on that offer. Live in, and what happens a year later when they come back and you got to keep paying for it? Man, this is the big problem with a lot of these big cities, okay? Instead of trying to solve their problem, like Los Angeles, they do things like this. They solve nothing. Sweep it under the rug, pay for it to all go away, and let someone else deal with it. Congratulations, America. These are the politics you deserve. When you vote for these people, it's what you get. They say, DHS defends the stratospheric cost, saying it actually saves the city on shelter funding, which amounts to about $41,000 annually per family, as compared to the average yearly rent of $17,563 to house families elsewhere. You're literally putting homeless people on buses and shipping them to other cities. Dude, there is something really wrong with this picture. Critics say the stopgap solution has been wrought with problems and ultimately has failed to help curb the city's homelessness. Not only are officials in towns where cities homeless land up in arms, but hundreds of the homeless families are returning to the Yeah, who could have seen that coming? And some are even suing NYC over being abandoned in barely livable conditions. Bill de Blasio, what are you doing? Multiple outside agencies and organizations. Okay, I'm not laughing at the families, man. I'm laughing at the sheer absurdity of this. I actually used to work for some homeless shelters. And you know what we would do? We would actually try and help people. Did it ever occur to you that you can maybe help? Look, I get it, man. You don't got to talk to me about the homeless crisis. I have worked with homeless people. Some people, you try as hard as you can, they can't be helped. Okay, some people, they have mental illness issues, they can't be helped. But a lot of people can. A lot of people fell in hard times, ended up in a bad situation, and with some support, you can actually help them. That's why I'm a big fan of a lot of these programs and systems. But look at this. This is not progressive. This is not liberal. What is this? You're literally paying to send homeless people away from you. You're like, I'll give you money if you leave. And they come back. This is insane. We were initially seeing a lot of complaints about conditions. Now that the program has been in operation long enough that the SOTA subsidy is expiring, one of our main concerns is it might not be realistic for people to be entirely self-sufficient after that first year, said Jacqueline Simone, policy analyst at Coalition for the Homeless. DHS said 224 SOTA families have ended up back in New York City shelters. The agency did not answer the Post's repeated requests for the number of families who wind up in out-of-town shelters. Listen, man, if you pay me to leave, you're like, hey, we're going to pay 20 grand to cover your rent for a year. Once my rent is up, I'll just come back. You're not solving the problem. You're literally wasting people's money. Could you imagine what would happen if they actually sat down, had a real conversation, said, what can we do to solve this problem? Perhaps they did. And perhaps they realized they can't. Well, I'll tell you what, man, this isn't making things better. It's making things worse. All you're doing is wasting money. They say, we suggested that DHS reach out to people as their subsidy runs out to confirm they will be secure and not have to re-enter shelter. But the agency told us they have no plans to do that. Could you imagine if they keep paying these people too? Think about it. You live in New York City. New York City is one of the few places in this country with a city income tax. Your taxes are ridiculous. You live in New York, okay? Let alone if you make a decent amount of money in New York, don't even bother, man. You gotta be nuts. Now you're finding out that they're actually gonna give money to pay for rent for homeless people in some other city and then actually potentially re-up that money every year. Think about it. That's New York redistributing wealth around the country. To an extent, I kind of like the idea of trying to reinvigorate low-income areas and dying rural towns, but not this way, man. It's abusive, okay? This to me is extremely immoral. You've got people in crisis. I get it, you want to help them, but you ever, feed a man a fish, teach him for a day, or feed a man a fish, and you feed him for a day, but if you teach a man to fish, you feed him for the rest of their life. So there you go. What are you doing here? You're kicking the can down the road for the next guy who comes into office. It also reminds me, you ever watch Futurama? When in Futurama they have global warming, so they send a ship to go get a big ice cube from a comet every year and drop it into the ocean to keep, it's like to replace the glaciers or whatever. That's what it reminds me of. And then every year they need more and more ice. Every year you're going to have more and more homeless families. And you're going to keep paying for them. What happens when it gets out of hand and you've got 50,000, 100,000 families you're subsidizing? This is not a solution to a problem. This is a callous, cold government pretending to care about people. And I assure you, I'd be willing to bet they brag about their numbers. I bet they go, our homeless numbers are down significantly year over year. Yeah, because they're bussing them out. Homeless individuals and families are eligible for SOTA if they can prove they have been in a New York City shelter for at least 90 days and that their household income is no more than twice it owes in rent. DHS would not expand on eligibility rules. So you get a free year rent, you come back for 90 days, you get another free year of rent. Wonderful. You're solving the problem. Good work, New York. Some polls in town, what is poll reference to? I don't know what that is. Taking in NYC refugees were shocked by the news. So in other words, if someone in a shelter, y'all will give them money to go somewhere else if they have been there for 90 days, and some of those people have been sent to Metairie, said Michael Yenny, president of the Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, when the Post told him the community is among the SOTA destinations. Wow. Sending them to other shelters. That's crazy, man. I'm not in Mayor Bill de Blasio's shoes. I don't sit behind his desk and I never will. But it's certainly interesting. You have shocked me down here in beautiful Southeast Louisiana. The mayor of Willacoochee, Georgia, was similarly stunned. I'm not familiar with none of that, Samuel Newsom said. The mayor of Harrisville, Utah, who was so baffled to receive a call from the Post that she questioned if the reporter had the wrong number, asked if soda recipients are connected to social services in the towns where they move. Are they just cutting them loose and saying, here you go? Or are they making sure they don't find themselves in the same situation? Dude, you realize what they're doing, man. They're just dropping them off in your city and hoping they don't come back. And then all the other towns are going to deal with the homeless crisis. Man, what wonderful times we live in, I must say. And is it anyone, the point I was making earlier about the size of cities is that perhaps at a certain point you can't sustain it. Taxes are getting higher and higher in New York. The metro system is crumbling. Infrastructure is failing. The city is filthy and it smells like sour milk. Man, I'm not trying to rag on New York. It's got some beautiful spots. But seriously, Manhattan, you smell like sour milk. And it's because of the trash. They put all the trash in the street. You know this? On trash day, man, go to the financial district on trash day in New York, and there are just piles of garbage in the streets. They don't have alleys. And it's a result of how the city was developed and designed. In Chicago, they started city planning once they realized the problems the East Coast was facing. And now they have alleyways where you can put your garbage in the back of your house, and so your town doesn't smell like sour milk. But Manhattan, at a certain point, you can't grow anymore. Like, what do? Keep building bigger, taller buildings? It's more and more expensive. The cost of living is extremely high. Then why would anyone run a business there? I'm going to have to make a bet. The digital economy is going to destroy New York City and LA. New York and LA are just too massive. And New York is worse because everything's super dense in skyscrapers, and it's because Manhattan is built on bedrock, so they can build up a lot. You can't do the same thing necessarily in Los Angeles. That means to get these trucks in to make deliveries, everything's getting ridiculously congested, and you just can't even drive. Like, you're nuts if you drive in that city. But you've also got the homeless problem, and it's only going to get worse. But here's the thing: you take one city block, right, and you build up, and you can keep building as high as you can possibly build, and you can put people inside of it. But what happens with the people sleeping on the ground outside? You can't build up the sidewalk. I mean, I guess you can do what Chicago did and make like Lower and Upper Wacker Drive, but you're gonna have a ton of people sleeping on the street. So New York is just exporting their homeless to other cities. Man, I gotta love it. Real bold solution there, guys. Thanks. Stick around. I got a couple more segments coming up in a few minutes, and I will see you all shortly.